Darlington, this is Good Morning PD on Live 95.
Welcome to Good Morning PD Live 95. Takes Mondays to make Fridays. Doesn't change your life, but if you call today, you want a free T-shirt. Let me make sure I get this right.
Yeah.
The Live 95,
a lot of words.
Good Morning PD, takes Mondays to make Fridays. Free T-shirt giveaway brought to you by Pepsi-Cola of Florence. Did I get that right?
That works.
And I got the grammar right as well.
You covered all the bases.
Was the cadence okay?
Was excellent.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Hey, we're in election time of the year. Dr. Thigpen was just in here with a gaggle of information he gives me every Friday morning as we prepare for our political roundtable. We had Todd Atwater here earlier in the week. Todd was talking about his desire to be our state's attorney general. We have someone on the phone today that shares that desire. William Herlong is an upstate Republican running for the office of attorney general. William, good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on the show.
Hope you're doing well. Todd made a very relevant point, and I'd love to get your opinion on this. When I ran for lieutenant governor, I had someone tell me one day, and it was kind of odd when they said it. I dismissed it a little bit, but as I kind of revisited, it makes a lot of sense. He said, Ken, people want to like their lieutenant governor. They want to trust their attorney general. It's not the aspiring governor. AG means attorney general, not aspiring governor. William, that's not a question as much as a comment, but I'd like to hear you with a follow-up comment.
Well, that's interesting, and I think Todd made a good point there. The attorney general has a really unique position in the government. It actually goes back to old England, but I tell people if you wanted to write it back on the back of a business card, the attorney general's job is to hold people accountable. And that guy can't. I also say I'm running for attorney general. I'm not running for Miss Congeniality. So the attorney general has to be able to be hard-nosed, assertive, affirmative. He's got to be willing to call it like he sees it. And he cannot. He just absolutely cannot be on the make, so to speak. And I don't necessarily mean elite. I don't necessarily mean flat out corrupt. Obviously, you don't want that. But he's got to be willing to call balls and strikes like they are balls and strikes, and not pull his punches in order because he's running for governor or something else. He's got to be a hard-nosed. I don't mean he's got to be mean or ugly, but he's got to be hard-nosed and tough as a lawyer.
William, we all have events and experiences that help create the person that we are. What events and experiences, what is the history of your life that should convince the voter you deserve a chance to be considered as their attorney general?
Well, there's all the resume stuff about being a good lawyer and having a good legal career, went to a great school, did well in school. I've tried a ton of cases in my career, 100 or more. A lot of them big cases, like I represented Clemson University in a $100 million patent trial. And over the last 7 years, I had a giant case against a New York hedge fund or private equity fund. That was also about a $100 million case and lasted 7 years. So there's all that sort of stuff. I like to think I'm a pretty darn good lawyer. But the personal part is that I'm somebody that, honestly, when I was a little kid, a friend of the family, he was a minister, and I remember he took an interest in me, and he wrote me a letter once, and the letter was the famous quote from Luke, where it says, "To those whom much is given, much is expected." And I've always sort of had that rolling around inside my head that I feel like I've had a lot given to me, and I have an obligation to pay it back. And so my interest is not just in doing well for myself. I've accomplished that. My interest, I would really like to do well for my home state and take these legal skills that I've developed over the years and apply them on behalf of everybody. And part of that is, I guess part of that theme is that I have absolutely no interest in running for any other office. So consistent with what I just said a moment ago, I don't want to take this attorney general role like aspiring governor. I want to really be attorney general and do it no more than 2 terms. And then I'm done. I'm going home. I'll have done my part. I'm not running for anything else. And the terms part, I strongly support term limits. Now, I don't have the ability to impose them on anybody else. I can lobby for them and fight for them, but I do have the ability to impose them on myself. And if I serve 2 terms, I really have done my part, and I'll go home. So the reason why I think people might look at me and hopefully think that this is a credible thing for me is I'm approaching it, I think, from the right point of view. I guess two other things is, one, I don't plan to move to Columbia and let myself get sucked into that swamp down there. I live in Greenville. My family's in Greenville. I'll drive back and forth. Y'all, you're in Florence. You can make that kind of drive. And then the fourth thing is just to illustrate that I'm really going at this a completely different way. I'm not going to take the salary. I'm going to donate the salary to charity. So I really am doing it completely as a matter of public service.
William, in your latest ad, you're insinuating that the AG's office, and I want to be careful here, you're not insinuating that there are criminals within the AG's office. You're not insinuating that crime is rampant within the AG's office, but you are insinuating, or my interpretation of your ad is that office has become terribly politically corrupted. Explain that, if you don't mind, why that office has become so political and why it does not need to be that way.
Well, the Attorney General's office really should be, I heard it described the other day as it's a partisan election, but it should more or less be a non-political office. If you look in the cases describing the Attorney General's office, they call it a quasi-judicial office. So obviously you run as a Republican or a Democrat and you get elected on a partisan ticket. But my thinking is once you get elected, you hang politics on the door and you do it as professionally and non-politically as you can. Politics has invaded every square inch of that office. Just to give you one example, the current Attorney General, Alan Wilson, has had on his staff 3 people who were at the same time were being paid by the Quinn organization. 3 people who I don't even know how that's legal. I haven't dug into the legality of it, but it sure as heck isn't right. And these are not lawyers, or at least one of them is not. I don't know about the other 2. These are not, I don't think any of them are lawyers, actually, but the principal one is not. This is purely a political factotum. And there's no reason to have anybody like that except for looking at the political wins left and right. And then, sort of the other issue, of course, Alan started running for governor or positioning himself to run for governor back in, 14 or 15. And earlier than that, probably. And of course, as any normal human being, that's going to influence your office. Politics has no place in it. A really clear example of how damaging politics is in the office, even apart from all the corruption issues where you have selective prosecutions, going after enemies and letting friends and cronies take a pass, is the whole Santee Cooper thing. They look when Wilson decides to run for re-election, they issue an opinion out of the Attorney General's office that a law from 2007 that enabled the building of those 2 reactors, that law was unconstitutional or likely to be held unconstitutional by a court. If Wilson had looked at that law earlier in his term, if he looked at it in 2011 after he got elected, or 12 or 13, if he had just looked at it and applied the same analysis and said it was unconstitutional, likely to be unconstitutional, the whole Santee Cooper thing never happened. And that, I talk about corruption as a tax. I don't think that's corruption per se, but it's not doing your job. Although, he took all kind of campaign contributions from those folks over the years. And before he became Attorney General, he worked for a utility law firm. So who knows, really? But it's not doing the job. And in the case of Santee Cooper, best case scenario, the taxpayers of South Carolina are stuck on the hook for $4 billion. And to bring that down home, that's more than $1,000, or about $1,000 for every single man, woman, and child in South Carolina.
William, you say someone started running for governor in 2014. I can personally attest it was probably about 2011 when somebody began running for governor, but I'll tactfully skirt that without further comment. Appreciate your time this morning. I do want to give you an opportunity to kind of just in closing tell people why they should vote for William Herlong and how they can support your campaign and candidacy.
Well, I will approach Attorney General in a completely different way than anyone that I know of, at least in recent history. I really will be completely unafraid to go after corruption up and down. I'm not afraid to lift any rocks. And rocks is actually a little bit of a metaphor with me. You go after corruption one rock at a time. And you lift that rock up and you go after it. I don't care how mossy it is or how ugly it is under there. I'm not pulling my punches. I am a lawyer who's had a great deal of success in my career, and part of the reason for the success is that I am, well, you can probably tell from the way I talk, I'm very passionate, but I am also relentless, and I go at it hard, and I'm trying to set myself up. It's sort of my personal Mike Pence rule. I'm not going to run for any other office, so I'm not going to tempt myself to pull my punches. I'm not going to serve any more than 2 terms. So the same thing. I'm not going to tempt myself there. I'm not going to move to Columbia. I'm going to drive back and forth, maybe have an apartment if I have to, late nights. So I'm not going to tempt myself there. And I'm going to donate the salary to charity. So I'm not going to tempt myself there, and I'm going to prove that this for me is true public service. The reason why I really ask people to take a hard look at my candidacy is, like I say, I'm approaching Attorney General in a completely different way. And I believe somebody who is willing to throw a brick through the plate glass window of business as usual can really make a change in Columbia and change our government. And just think about that, $1,000 for every single man, woman, and child in the state as a result of failing to do the job properly in the Attorney General's office with the Santee Cooper. That's what lack or incompetence or dereliction of duty, whatever you want to call it, apart from all the corruption, that's what it costs the taxpayers. If people think what I'm saying is good, I would be grateful if you go on the website. It's www.herlongforag.com. The Facebook page is facebook.com/herlongforag. Or feel free to call me. My cell phone is 864-238-5111. I'd be delighted to talk to you. And my email, william@herlongforag.com. Be delighted to hear from anybody and answer any more questions.
And, William, if you'll get someone in your campaign to forward that information to us, we'll get it up on our Facebook page. It's hard. People are driving, and it's hard to recite and remember. But if you'll get someone from your organization to get that information to us, we'll certainly get it up on our Facebook page. And if our listeners are involved or interested in helping William, there's how you do it. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity to be on the show.
Absolutely, and have a good day.
Take care.